Hello, fellow traders. How is everyone doing? Today it is 8:02. Now, just clicked over 8:02, Tuesday, June 20th. Hope you're having a great day, great night, great evening, wherever you are. Big Dave says, I'm up, I'm up. I know those intros can really get you, right? That's what they're there for. Andrew and I always have fun talking about those. It's like you're coming onto some big stage to give a big speech. I thought I'd start out with the momentum meter here today, just briefly, because I had it up before I started the stream. You can see the USD fairly strong. The euro is fairly strong as well, along with the Swiss. A little bit of weakness coming into the yen, but the binary creator had a question, said, I have a long trade at 1:11:32. Do you think I should hold or get out with small profits? You know, it's sort of a mixed bag because the euro is beating out the Aussie. The euro is beating out the pound. The euro is pretty strong right now. However, the USD is also strong. So I'm sort of mixed on that. I'm going to take a look at the chart here in a moment. But you can see the weakness coming into the Canadian dollar. Crude oil, of course, has fell beneath our structural support that we've been watching for a while. And sort of surprising today, the stock markets came off a little bit here. Dow down 60, S&P down 16, NASDAQ down 50. Donald Trump's been pretty quiet. He did have an interesting tweet here, though, about 6 hours ago. He said, while I greatly appreciate the efforts of President Xi and China to help with North Korea, it has not worked out. At least I know China tried. So a little bit of pressure coming on North Korea. From Trump. Interesting stuff. Rockstar FX, you got it. Hey, Amrit. Lucky77, good day to you. Morning, Kitschy. Hope you're doing good, man. Haven't chatted to you for a little while. Hope you're doing great. Let's take a look at some charts, shall we? A lot of things shook up overnight. And I'll give you a little rundown right now. First of all, the trade that I had on my own account, I covered this yesterday. Selling Aussie buck, it is still going well. It's not a big move, you know. Going from this black line all the way down is only about 20 pips. But the Aussie is definitely under some pressure right now. But be a little wary. We're right in this key area of structural support with the Aussie US dollar. We came right down and bounced. So we're not quite through our gray area yet. Remember the trade plan on this was to be, to be short and then hope it would come through the gray area of support and then retest and continue. It just poked its head through by about a pip or so, and it's still sort of sticking there. So I'm a fan of a weaker Australian dollar. I think Aussie dollar to the downside is a decent trade. But before I get too into that, let's take a look at the others. We had the euro pound breakout on the back of the news out of Great Britain overnight. And Andrew had covered that a little bit, probably better than I can overnight. Carney was speaking. And it was really hard on the Great British Pound. So my prediction was for it to go lower to see strength come into the Great British Pound. But as you may recall me saying last night during the Asian session, I wasn't quite confident enough to put my money on the line here. I just wasn't quite. And we got right to this triangle and broke out. Now we're sitting up 70 pips. So I'm going to tuck that away, just looking at what has happened since we last spoke. I know if you're like me, you watch some of Andrew's streams and Tony's streams as well, but just giving you a little summary. Crude is, of course, a big bit of news today. Still tucked way down. Take a look at that 4-hour chart, just moving down, lower, lower, lower. We took out the rather important area of structural support here. You can see it here on the daily. 43.70, 43.68. And now we pushed on down. We're sitting at 43.45 a barrel for crude. Pretty low point. It's starting to show up in the news. I saw a post I was going to share here from the Wall Street Journal talking about how we're now officially in a bear market for crude since we broke this support level. Next level of any structural support is coming up at 42.16. So it might not seem like a lot, but that's a pretty big move down for crude. And again, zooming out to the weekly, I always like to do that top-down analysis, even though I went sort of backwards right now, looking at the smaller chart first. I always keep the hourlies up here for the live stream platform. But crude, of course, was up sitting around $100 for a while. and then we broke down and just putting in lower lows, lower highs on the weekly now. Next area of support, 42.16. And under that, of course, we have this rather deep wick here at 39.05-ish. Monthly, that's where we're at. Do you remember earlier this year, months ago, we were talking about this inverted head and shoulders pattern here on crude? That's obviously broken now. We never did get past the neckline to really have any kind of projection up. I remember our projection that we were talking about probably back in February-ish or so, was it? Maybe it was February, March, something like that. Probably March, April, 26 bucks. We were thinking crude was going to get up around 75-ish, and it's just rolling down. So, you know, stocks are a little under pressure from that. Asian stocks a little down. But that's an important piece of the economic pie as far as the world markets are concerned. Take a look at silver. This trade, of course, did not make it. We poked down beneath 1642. And yesterday I brought it up a bunch of times. I'm not going to waste a bunch of time on it with you tonight. But my hypothesis, if you will, is that if crude did hit our stop at 1642, that I didn't think that this next level of support at 1615 or the swing low, you can see the 0 fib, well, it's a little small on your screen here, would hold. So if I pump us out to the 4 hour, this is where we're at on silver. And I don't think this next level is going to hold. I think silver has room to move down alongside crude. If I zoom into the daily time frame and shift the chart just a little bit over here. Yeah, let's pull this back. That's a little too much. Yeah, let's go like that. Just so you know too, if you're using MetaTrader 4, you can of course click the red tab up here, the red arrow, and you can shift your chart left and right. The other thing that some traders I've talked to didn't know is when you shift the chart, there's a little light gray arrow up here on the top, and you can drag that left or right to make the chart shift greater or less, you know, however you like. So just a little tip there if you're newer to MetaTrader 4. So I think silver is going to be moving down. I mean, we broke our structural support. Maybe it's a fake out, but I'm definitely not in a position to buy silver right now. Again, I don't think the 1615, 1605 price point is going to hold at this point. I'll be more confirmed that it won't hold if we can break down just a little lower beneath our support area here. After that, next support's coming in at 1563. I'm sorry, 1563. So we'll see. We keep beneath this gray box. I think silver is going to push down. Let's take a look at gold. Where is my gold? There it is. Let's shift this over a little, shrink her down. And here we have our channel. The trade plan on gold was to be buying around 1232.28, 1232.50, somewhere in that area. Hoping if we can get to see if we can get back down to our trend line. This rising trend line has 3 touches on it, and this could potentially be the 4th. Remember, we were trying to decide right in this middle if we're going to go up and push down or come down. I think obviously now we can get rid of these lines. I didn't take any trades on this. I was waiting for the daily, you know, to play out and get into some area. And really, I mean, if you're trading gold, you could be doing short-term trades here, but on a longer-term chart, we're really sitting in no man's land here. We're not really that close. We're about $9-10 away from our rising trend line. We're not about to hit any kind of resistance level. There's really no technical support level coming up. We're just sort of hanging here at 1245. Not a big psychological level like 1200 or 1300 coming up. Even if we zoom our charts out a little bit more and look at the weekly, we're just sort of at a price point where the markets have really chopped around through. If we go way back over to June of 14 on the weekly here, we had some wicks that came in right around this price point. But overall, my bias on gold is down. I think gold and silver are going to push down a little bit along with crude. Which brings us to the next elephant in the room, the US dollar. What is going on with our US dollar? Take a look at that messy chart, man. Whew. This is part of the reason that a lot of traders are frustrated when I read in forums and, you know, different groups on Facebook and things like that. A lot of traders have been frustrated the last few days, last week. We've had this really sort of unpredictable DXY. You can see us sort of stuffed down at the bottom, trying to decide if we're going to have a bottom here, we're going to push up, and I'm waiting for it. I know when I was watching part of Andrew's live stream, the Forex London market wrap, he had a colored line drawn in, almost like a squished down little box there at the top of this area, trying to just do the same thing my little box here is doing. You know, are we breaking out? Are we going to stay in this box and just sort of channel through? And as you know, the euro dollar is the majority of the DXY. So, you know, what's going to happen? Looking at this just from a technical standpoint on this time frame, this looks slightly bullish to me. I think that we could push up to the upside on the DXY. If the DXY pushes up, that could obviously pull the euro dollar down, pound dollar, Aussie dollar down, could pull silver and gold and crude down, stronger dollar, of course, could do that. Daily, definitely in a downtrend. If we do push up, the next level of technical resistance to the upside is right around 98.40. So that's a pretty big, you know, that's a pretty big push up for the DXY. And again, don't forget the weekly. Here we are. I mean, I was talking to someone earlier on Skype today. We had a short chat back and forth. It wasn't a video call, but just typing each other. And I told them, you know, don't forget to look at the weekly dollar index, because if you look at this, it really isn't as dramatic as it might seem. You know, everybody thinks the dollar is falling apart, but you know, we've been sitting up at this area for a long time. And if we go back to the monthly, you know, we sat for years down around 80, 85. So we had the Trump rally, of course. I think that we're going to see some strength come back into the US dollar. I really do. That's my sort of short-term, medium-term projection. Again, I apologize. I'm not looking at the chat right now yet. If there's any questions in there or things you want to cover. But I see the DXY pushing up a little bit. You know, I was mixed on this, right? I thought we were going to keep pushing down, down, down. But now I'm seeing all this area of support, these rounding bottoms, this quick rejection. Of course, most of these moves, these impulsive ones, are due to news. But I think moving up on the DXY, at least up to 98.40, makes sense. So if we toggle this back over to the Euro USD, which can be sometimes a mirror image of this, we see this same wick that was on the dollar index. You can see this right up here, even though the chart's a little shrunk down. This little impulsive move here on the hourly. We toggle it back to the DXY on the hourly. You can see that right down here, the same place. So if the DXY pushes up, then the euro dollar would push downwards. But we have these key levels. You know, there just hasn't been a lot of volatility here in the euro dollar as of late. You know, we pushed up. We were trying to decide earlier too. I think this was after my Asian stream last night. We were talking about possibly a head and shoulders pattern on the euro dollar daily here. Could definitely be there, right here. Now this wick's a little high, but now of course we don't know for sure if this is going to be a head and shoulders. But if we did have a neckline, be something like this. I mean, we'd see where these other bars end up. But the way you measure head and shoulders is from the tip of the head to the neckline, about 160 pips. Project that down. That'd put our target at about 109.60 to the downside for the euro dollar. All right. A lot of assumptions going on there, of course, but that's what you have to do when you're trading. Got to make some assumptions, form your bias. I think the more that you look at this, at least for me, the more I look right at this chart, this euro dollar 4-hour chart, the more that it starts to feel bearish, like things are rolling over. Outside of this spike up here, you can see lower lows coming in. You can see lower highs coming in, again, except for this spike that we had on the news. we have this possible neckline. We'll see if it transpires or not. This breakdown, retest, and possible continuation to the downside. So, and this is looking at a 4-hour time frame. But overall, on this sort of zoomed out look on the euro dollar, obviously we're in an uptrend. But I foresee this rolling down a little bit. If I look at, where are we here? This is January 3rd. This is April. I don't think I'm going to be able to fit that in here, am I? Not quite. So I'm going to zoom this in, shift this over just a little bit. Let's take a fib of this whole move. From the swing low that was right around the beginning of January, all the way up to this very top wick. And you can start to build up a little trade plan, right? You got a possible head and shoulders pattern. Possible. It's not beautiful, but it's there. We'll see if this neckline is actually accurate or not as the pattern unfolds. You have this projection roughly at 109.60 from the head and shoulders. 160 pips, a little conservative. You have the 38.2 coming up at that level right in this area of consolidation. The more I look at it, the more I talk about it here, the more I like euro dollar short for about 150 pips. Just technically. I'm not looking at any kind of fundamental stuff right now. Just looking at technicals only. You can see this sort of rolling out like this, coming down, pulling back a little bit, and then pushing down a little bit more. With our targets down right in this range, 109.60s, somewhere in this 38.2 retracement of the whole move. So that's sort of my thought on the euro dollar. It's a little bit longer term. Usually I try to focus on the hour, 4 hour, maybe even 15 minutes so we can have some intraday trades. But I think this kind of a trade plan is okay here. As you know, I don't trade the euro dollar very much, but I do trade it. Dollar CAD, still sticking. You know, we're on this trend line here. Are we breaking? Are we bouncing? It's really hard to have a strong Canadian dollar with oil falling through the floor. So this could be another possible trade plan on a longer term chart. Looking to possibly buy dollar CAD. I know that we had talked about euro CAD as well, but this one, the levels aren't quite as interesting to me as they are with the dollar CAD. There just isn't a lot of reason why this price stuck at 47.26. So I'm liking dollar CAD to the upside. So again, I don't want to repeat myself too much because I know a lot of you have been listening here since last year. But for those of you that are a little bit newer, I mean, what you really want to do as a Forex trader is you got to form your bias first. My bias right now is that the dollar index could break through to the upside. I'm not looking for a huge breakthrough, but if we take this whole area here, this is about 1127. Yeah, so this whole channel, if you trade channels, you know, when we have a channel breakout, we like to get a breakout that's about the width of the first channel. This width of this first channel we've been in is easily enough to get us up to 98.40, where we have this technical area of resistance. So if you do believe that the DXY and the US dollar is going to push up a little bit, that makes the trade plan to the downside on the euro dollar a little bit more appealing. And it also makes the trade plan on the upside for the dollar CAD a little bit more appealing. Right? Euro pound I'm very mixed on right now. I do like Euro Aussie long, however. I just feel like there's a lot of pressure on the Australian currency right now. Let's talk about that in a moment, though. Let's go over to the yens next. take a look here. Take a look at the chat here. Doing well. Mine has Gine. How do you get arrow to show an MT4? I'm not sure if I know what you mean. Yo-yo. Maybe this arrow, you click up in this tab right next to the time. There's a little check mark. You can put an arrow like this. I think that's what you mean. It's a beautiful chart if you grid. I don't recommend gridding though. It works very well. Consolidation. Sorry about reading the chat. I'm a little bit behind here. Pickles kill manual traders. Girls. Okay. Supply and demand. Big Dave started writing grids in 2007. Yeah, you got to use money management, of course, on a grid. But you got it. Careful, it's cat. That's exactly right. Yeah, the Canadian dollar is my nemesis. Lots more room to go short if the levels are broken on the euro. Big Dave says that's right on. Euro daily looks like a good trade. USD has been showing signs of possible strength. The euro's been putting a little weaker. You got it. No, the chart movement area you mentioned at the beginning of the stream. Okay. The arrow, if you toggle up, I can't zoom in on this chart here, but you got the forward, the scroll chart and the shift over here up on the top. If you can see way up where my crosshairs are pointing, you click the red one and it shifts your chart from left to right. And there's a little tiny arrow way up here, right above the price action. If you can see my crosshairs up here, that little arrow, you hold it and you can drag it so that your chart shift will move more or less. You can only drag it about this far. So this is the standard range that a chart will shift over if you want to draw price projections, for example. But you can drag that way over so that the chart shifts that far every time you click. So usually what I do, and you've seen this a million times if you've been watching for a while, but I always keep my charts all the way over to the far right, because when I have my chart shrunk down, I can fit a lot more on my charts at the time. But when we're talking about price projections and where we want to see price go, and we're drawing levels and putting prices on and fibs, it's nice to have the room here to the right where you foresee price going to draw in those areas. So again, I use the chart all the way to the right just to look at them all, to scan the markets. And then when I zoom in and talk about levels, that's when I shift the chart over. Hopefully that helps a little bit. It's all those little things, you know. I mean, it's true, isn't it? All the little things. Tiny arrow's gone for lunch, not there anymore. Sorry. Used to be there, but not anymore. Yeah, you might have, you could have the colors set too. If your color of your screen matches the color of the arrow, I think that it'll be invisible, but you'll be able to find it by clicking there. Let's see, how do you create a box channel in MT4? The box channel, all I do is just make a square. So for example, I click on insert in the top. You can't see it on my chart, but you go way up to insert in the top left, insert shape. Yeah, it's not showing up on my chart. And then you do shape rectangle, and then you just drag it, and you can insert any kind of shape you want. You can do a rectangle. You could do an ellipse like this and drag it. You can change the colors however you would like them to be. But that's just inserting shape. You can also find insert arrows there for the arrows. Fibonacci, of course, channels, that kind of thing. There's a lot of cool things you can do with MetaTrader 4. I think TradingView is a much better package as far as presenting. You know, when I was talking to Nick about what I should do, because TradingView is nice. TradingView looks smoother. You see a lot of other YouTube streamers use TradingView because you can do a lot more with it and save things, and it has a lot more functionality just for presentations. But I'd rather use MetaTrader 4 because that's what most traders use. So it just made sense. Not quite as dynamic. I do have a really cool drawing tool, but it doesn't show up on my charts unless I set my streaming platform to show everything on my charts at once. Sorry about that. How's it going, Miguel? Chart on grids. If you're conservative, even do money management. That's right. Shift charts. People use TechSmith arrows. That's right. Yeah, you got it, Yudi. You got it, Yudi. Yeah, I'm a TechSmith guy. I like Snagit, Camtasia, that type of thing. So, taking a look at the news ahead, let me toggle this right over for you. Taking a brief look at the news here. We'll pump that baby up nice and big for you. Where are we? Here we go. So we have not a lot of news coming out tomorrow. Moderate news out of Great Britain. Haldane speaking. Existing home sales out of the U.S. That's one of the news releases that I really like to look at. I know a lot of people who are real estate agents and people in the area, and they're always looking for home sales to rise here in the U.S. Very stimulating to the economy when they do so. Crude oil inventories. You might remember, I've been telling people for a long time on these streams that crude oil inventories really don't do much to the markets, but the last one did. The last one really did, and that was a surprise. You can see here, it came out. Crude oil inventories sort of shocked this last time. It was positive. They were predicting it down, but you saw what happened with the price of crude after that. So the proof is in the pudding, so to speak. New Zealand, big news tomorrow, about 4 p.m. Central Time, official cash rate. I don't see anything that I've read or that I know about New Zealand currency to tell us why the rates might change. The Swiss franc and the New Zealand are the two that I watch the least as far as currencies, but I don't see any reason why that rate would change. And you always have to be a little safe, though, because if you don't see any reasons for it to change, and it does change, the bigger the shock, the bigger the recoil, and the more blowback you're going to have as a trader in the market. So you want to be real safe. My advice when you have the big, think about it. The most important thing about a currency is how much it's worth. So when they're going to say how much it's worth, what the interest rate is, you got to be safe as a trader. So if you're in a New Zealand-based currency pair, like the Aussie New Zealand yen, New Zealand dollar, whatever it might be, I would probably be out of that trade before this news event comes out tomorrow. Got some big news coming out of Canada on Thursday, U.S. unemployment claims. And then on Friday, of course, we have Canadian news coming out, starting with their CPI. And a whole bunch of news coming out of Europe, Germany, France. So overall, as far as Forex trading goes, the rest of this week is pretty quiet in the news events. And you might realize that I like trading at that time. I like trading when things are fairly quiet. Tend to get in on those little micro trends, if you will, without a lot of the big shock. There's just not a lot of news happening this evening. I watch my Twitter feed and Financial Juice. Most of the news that you see, Reuters putting out, Live Squawk, Forex Live, when you know it's quiet, they're talking about the prices. Like this one, the Aussie yen dips below the 1 hour. Is it risk off? Should we buy dips on the dollar yen? Dollar edges down, oil slides. There's just not much to say as far as big news goes. So it's pretty quiet. Right now, I don't have any trades going on. I almost missed out on this one, didn't I? This is the Euro Yen long that I had last night that got stopped. Right here. So I don't want to forget about that. Let me pull up that chart. Sorry about that, guys. I don't want to miss this one. I always want to make sure everything's honest and open and transparent. So this is the Euro Yen. I still feel, quite bullish on this. I feel bullish on the Euro Yen. As you can see here, if I pull up my candlesticks and we go out to a 15-minute chart, shrink it down a little bit, we're really being sort of sticky at 124. Really sort of sticky here. I think the thing that's going to help push the yen pairs higher is the world indices. And we had that little dip in the U.S. stock markets today after that all-time high, rally yesterday. So don't forget, we're still just a little bit below all-time highs in the U.S. Market. I don't have a chart up with the Asian indices, but I know they were negative earlier. But I'm assuming stocks are going to continue to push up. I don't see any reason not to. I mean, all the stuff with Trump that was a little hard on the dollar, all the things that he's been doing wrong and things that he's been getting caught doing, even if he's not guilty. All the stories that are being made up, they're all sort of starting to quiet down a little bit. I mean, there's still stuff out there, but for his own reputation, things are quieting down a little bit. And the more that it's quiet, the more risk on we see in the markets, the better for stock. So I'd be looking to get long on the euro yen, pound yen, dollar yen. Again, I'm going to avoid silver now at this point. I still think silver is going to push even lower. I like dollar CAD. Dollar CAD long. Euro dollar short. So I'm going to go ahead and place a trade here with you in real time before I sign off for the day here. I was looking at this earlier. I mean, this trend line that I drew in is far from a perfect trend line. What I tried to do, at least to get somewhat accurate, is get it right at this very, very bottom of the wick here from May of 2016 and get right in this cluster of swing lows that were put in February of this year. And you can see we poked through that slightly and got rejected. Now we're bouncing a little bit. I still think crude's going to push down. Yeah, there's going to be retracements and things, but you got to be a little conservative here with your stops. I think having stops down 40 pips on this trade would be a good idea. I'm going to cut down my order size just a little bit lower than usual, because I know my account balances across all my accounts and where I'm at with things. I think a stop right down around 32, 39, 32, 37 would suffice. So the question is now, where's the upside on this dollar CAD? And the upside could be potentially huge, right? I mean, especially in this longer term. If it does actually bounce off of this trend line, I mean, we could be pushing up 200, 400, 500 points. It's going to depend a lot on the dollar, obviously, but I think even more importantly on the Canadian dollar. I just flicked back through the momentum meter, and the pound is the weakest currency across the board, but closely followed by the Canadian dollar. So the target for me, I'm going to make it quite large. I'm going to go a little overkill here, I think. We'll see if we can get there or not. Get a stop of 40. I'm going to put it just below the swing low here. Guess it won't be that over the top. 38.80. That'll give us about 100 pips. I'm going to keep my hands off of it after that. 33.80. Sorry, guys. Not that aggressive. 33.80. So there we have it. We got about a 40 pip stop, about a 100 pip profit target. Stop is up, or I'm sorry, target's up here, 38.80. Stop is down here, about 32.37. Entry price, of course, is here at market price. I'm also liking the euro dollar short. I don't usually trade off the 4-hour and daily that much, but it does look okay to me here. Might be a decent trade. Maybe get in on that. We'll see. Euro Aussie. Yeah, sure. Sorry about that, Miguel. I haven't looked at the didn't look at the chat for a moment. Euro Aussie, yeah, I just briefly touched on that right in the beginning. I am bullish on the Euro Aussie for sure. For sure. Let's see. I like a weak Australian dollar. I think that you might have better luck. No, maybe not. I don't trade pound Aussie very often, but the pound's really under pressure here. So if you're going to buy a yen pair, I think dollar yen, euro yen are the best. And as far as a cross goes, I think euro Aussie has more room upside than euro pound does, at least in the short term this evening. So this is a trade that I've been watching here sort of creep up, and it broke out of our area of resistance here by how far? About 15 pips. Retrace back in. I've been sort of watching this all morning. I'm going to take one here with you too. I think that we got to have stops beneath the 46.68 level, 46.65. As you know, Euro Aussie is quite volatile pair. A lot of movement here with Euro Aussie. Sort of like pound yen and pound Swiss and some of those other pairs that just crank off pips. So even a 30 pip stop is pretty tight here. I think we might want that just a little bit lower. Let's just tuck it down a little bit deeper here. Just getting everything set up here. So I'm not going to bring this any closer unless we can get some profits, at least 30, 40 pips of profit on this Euro Aussie. Stops around 46.58, give or take a little bit. Profit targets, though, to the upside. There's so much room up here. I would say that the logical target, at least in my humble opinion, is 48. Just a little shy of 48. And again, I don't want to give you all the wrong idea. I look at these a lot, throughout the day. I'm not just coming up with random numbers off the top of my head here. I've been watching the charts this morning, been doing some trading today, and not just sitting down and coming up with random quick numbers here. These are the numbers that feel the best to me. I wanted to definitely keep my targets beneath this whole area of consolidation. I also know the big figure of 48 has been support and then resistance, and I think it may be resistance again on the way up. I'm not that concerned about this wick here in the middle, 47.54. I'm not that concerned with that one. So that's my trade plan on the hourly for the Euro Aussie. I see us pushing up, and then, of course, a little pullback, and then pushing up all the way to our targets. We don't have a lot of news really to limit us as far as the Aussie or the Euro goes. We have New Zealand news tomorrow, of course, at 4 o'clock that I had covered, and that can often influence the Australian currency to some effect. Not a lot, but some. I'm still mixed on the euro dollar. As a rule, this isn't a set rule, but as a general rule, I don't like to buy the euro versus the currency pair and then sell it versus something else. Some might call it a sort of a pseudo hedge, if you will. I don't really feel that way. Obviously, the euro dollar could fall 100 pips and the euro Aussie could rise, but I do like euro dollar to the downside, technically. But I don't like pound Aussie up more than euro Aussie up. So I'm going to stick with the plan here. Buy dollar CAD, buy euro Aussie, and possibly get into a sell on the euro dollar. Also like to be buying in one of these yen pairs here soon, dollar yen, euro yen, but I'm going to wait a little bit on that. We're still sticking at 124-ish on euro yen. Pound is really under pressure since this morning. Carney was rambling on, beating up the pound. All right, guys, I'm going to sign off for tonight. If you need anything, feel free to drop it in chat or email me anytime, jason@forexsignals.com. Sort of mixed, muted markets for me a little bit right now, as you can tell. But again, buying dollar CAD, selling. I'm buying Euro Aussie, buying dollar CAD, buying Euro Aussie, and possibly looking to sell Euro dollar. More technically on the long-term time frame. Make it a great day. Happy trading. Take care.